Good day, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, and fellow enthusiasts of architecture. I want to start our discussion with a question.
No problem.
How do we envision the future of architecture? This question drives our exploration today as we delve into the exciting world of architectural innovation and trends that will shape our built environment in the coming years. Maybe my guests, the panelists, can be introduce yourself in a briefly and their.
Answer the question. No, introduce. Oh, okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Kiona Qing Wang. I'm from China, and now based in Dubai. I had some experience in different kind of architecture in US, China, and potentially here. Nice to meet you, everybody here.
Thank you very much. Yeah. I'm Mohamed Al Mahmoud. I'm an architect and urban designer. I'm the founder of Walkscapes. I have studied architecture, but I was drawn in urban design, basically the human-centric urbanism, looking at public spaces and city through a human-centric perspective by understanding what people do in public spaces first. Natalie?
Hi, I'm Natalie Rosenzweig, founder of Name Architecture. We have an architecture office based in both Paris and London. We work on a series of projects, very often dealing with sites of heritage sites in the center of European cities, but also recently working quite a bit in this region of the world, and some projects in Neom and Alula, and very happy to explore what's happening here.
Thank you for all of you. I'll pose questions to you. And first questions for Kiona. How are new materials and construction techniques influencing the aesthetic and functionality of building? Can you share examples of cutting-edge projects?
Based on my experience, new material can help us to open our mind and think differently. But very often our clients don't agree to use emerging materials in their projects immediately. I have failed many times actually. For example, we try to use a zinc to replace aluminum panel in a 5-star hotel in Shanghai. The client considered this quite hardly, but in the end, they still use the traditional material for the safety and also the project cost. So I think for architect, we should try to use or test out how the new materials work for the future, but at the same time, we still need to work with our client. It's not so difficult to satisfy the functionality, but for the building and how to make the city more beautiful, it might be more challenging.
Thank you. And you are giving an example from the real world and what will be in the in the marketplace. And second questions for Natalie. How can architects and designers ensure that buildings remain adaptable to evolving needs? What are the key principles in creating flexible spaces for the future?
Okay, thanks for the question. So I think it's definitely a question that comes up a lot in our projects in the brief from the outset. But I think one way we have to approach this is to say that actually we think that there is already a lot of knowledge existing in how to transform an existing urban fabric or an existing building. If you take the example of cities such as Paris or London or any European cities, actually, and the history of the several lives that these buildings have over time, when they were first conceived to be a town hall, for example, and we transformed that into a hotel, or even the more mundane buildings that really follow and adapt themselves to the societal changes and the different family configurations over the 200 last years. I think this is a testimony on how actually flexibility is something that is inherent to can be inherent to an architectural thought process. So we learn a lot from these examples when we work, and then when we approach a new project, we always question, what is fundamental there to stay, the minimum that has to be there for the building to be able to adapt and be flexible in the future. And somehow thinking what would be the macro elements of what is inherently there, and what are the micro elements that can be adapted and changed according to time. Of course, it has challenges, especially in our experience. The most challenging elements to readapt are very often the services that go through the building, and how these have to be thought of in advance to be able to readapt to the various needs of the program, and also to the evolution of technology. But I think that it's a very interesting outset to start a project with, to think of that.
Thank you for your insights. And the next questions for Mohammed. Your expertise lies in sustainable urbanism. How can mixed-use developments contribute to sustainable urban environment, and what role would they play in the future cityscape?
Thank you very much for the question. I think what I would like to start first by qualifying what do we mean by sustainable urbanism, right? So there is a technical aspect of what a sustainability is. And I think our focus is towards the social and cultural sustainability of areas. So normally in our project, the way we approach sustainability from a process perspective, right? From an architectural and urban design process. So we always start by understanding who are those communities that populate the given area. And in that sense, it could be a master plan, it could be an area in a city, it could be a collection of public spaces. We understand the DNA profile of those community, and DNA profile by understanding who they are, what do they do in public spaces, and what does form the social and cultural values within these communities. We take these evidence-based processes into the design process, and then what we do actually is we take the human-centric perspective into the design process. And what we have done over the past years is we've taken the understanding of these communities from an static observational perspective into an AI model that actually simulate what people do in public spaces, and then we can take it into the design process. If we can't play the video, I would like to show you a short 2-minute video showcasing one of the examples of a mixed-use development developed by my colleagues at Wow House. And what we did, if we can't play the video, what we did, we have tested the urban environment and that mixed-use development against our AI-developed human-centric model in an interactive way. So what you see in the screen now is the model, and the model runs as a standalone software. You can project your 3D model inside it, and then what we need to do is you need to calibrate all of the functions in the ground floor and upper floor. So we have here a mixture of mixed-use buildings and residential areas. And then what we do is we have trained and developed AI models that represent certain communities. And now what you will see in a second is when we run the simulation, it's supposed to be an interactive approach, so you can do it while you design as well. So you can also interactively change your design processes or design interventions. And then what you see now is the simulation is running, and that simulation is trained by an evidence-based data of human that we've observed that represent certain communities in a given area. And then what you see is areas where they choose to actually be stationed by conducting, like sitting in a cafe, sitting in a bench. So what you see is an interactive living lab, a virtual living lab of a given community that is taken from an aesthetic report of observation into a dynamic approach by visualizing where do people might go in the future in these areas, and what would they populate. And all of the data that are represented in the model are geotagged. So at the end of the simulation, you can get all of the data exported in a GIS software, and you can do all of your spatiotemporal analysis. What's interesting here is that it's not an animation per se. It's the agent will come and qualify the design in a given area. So we don't necessarily use it to qualify options of option A or option B in the design processes, because that's not our main goal. Our main goal is to use these AI simulation models in a way to facilitate co-creative processes in the design process. Because what we need to do, we need to find tools and technologies that encourage us to ask the relevant questions and not to seek specific answers. And I think that is important to enhance the urban design process in a given area or in a master plan. So that's my answer to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
No, I just like to add to this because I think it's great to see that at the urban scale as you're studying, and what we're seeing more today at the scale of a building as well, is that these similar studies are being conducted then with the digital twins, for example, where we can come up with scenarios of future uses and potential adaptation. So it's really tools that are becoming more and more democratized in a way for us to be working with, and that we see the results coming out of those.
Yeah.
If I may just add to here, sorry to hijack, but the question of adaptability is, if you take it into the design process, it would be a set of questions of what if, right? So kind of projecting the future and using these technologies to ask what if, and what if we increase density by this factor? What if the uses have changed? That would actually enhance the discussions at early stages of the kind of design process. And then you take adaptability and you qualify it during the design process of the architectural design, rather than talking about adaptability as an end product at the end of the project. Yeah?
Do you want to add something, Kiona?
I think as an architect or designer, we should think ahead, even think very early stage, because very often our clients will change their idea during the process. So we try to make everything very flexible and to meet their needs. Or the function might be changed from a hotel conference room to guest rooms, all this. So I think this is a very good example as well. Thank you.
Thank you for good discussion. This is the last question. Can you discuss also the impact of modular construction and prefabrication on building efficiency and construction timelines? Are there any notable projects that showcase these methods? Maybe Natalie, you can.
I can start, and maybe you want to complete. I think it's definitely also something that we're working with a lot. The advantages are, I think we all know the advantages of these modular construction in urban environments, but what we're seeing a lot and working a lot with is the advantages of those when we work in very remote locations, for example, where access to site is difficult, access to workmanship is difficult as well, and where we are thinking the projects from the outset as modular constructions. That enables us to both control the quality of the output and also the costs and the environmental aspects of it from the outset. However, I think it also means that we have to think of the design process in a novel way. Basically, we have to integrate the industry, the production line of these modules very early on in a design process, because it's a lot about the dialogue of how we develop the modules, how we test them, how we bring them to site, and that also means that actually we're seeing a lot of change in the way that maybe the very traditional procurement methods and design stage methods are being re-questioned.
Okay, and Mohammed, maybe you can, in urbanistic size, answer these questions. What's modularity can enhance the urbanism?
Sure. So my take on this question is, how can modular construction fabrication can actually enhance the first question, the adaptability and flexibility of the architecture. So if my take on this would be, if we develop an AI model that is generative to test the potential changes on a given piece of architecture, and test that against various solutions, and then in retrospect go back to the modular unit and adapt it in a way to be able to change and adapt in a flexible manner for future. And that would be an interesting approach in my opinion. Yeah.
That was really good. Kiona, do you have some examples for that?
I think we have a project, also a hotel project, in a very beautiful mountainside. It's not a very big building. It's only like 14,000 square meters above ground and 4,000 underground. It was a small building, and the structure itself was very simple, just boxes. The most difficult of the building was the finish, the wooden things. The irregular shape was from the wooden, created by the wooden things. But we had more than 1,000 pieces of different sizes of wooden things. So prefabrication really saved us a lot of time. Because of the 3D modeling and also technical drawings and detailing beforehand, and they prefabricated the things and sent to the site and assembled on site. It saved us quite a lot of time, at least 1 year. Because I remember from the architecture contract signed in 2016 summer, then the hotel finished and had a grand opening in 2018 December. Only 2 years time. That very complicated, looks very complicated building and finished. So I think that was a great help because of prefabrication.
Thank you. And we have an enlightening and thought-provoking discussion today, exploring the future of architecture and the innovation of the trends that will define it. I want to express my deepest gratitude for Natalie, Mohammed, and Kiona for sharing their invaluable insights. Your expertise and passion for architecture inspire us all to think bigger and bolder in the design of our future spaces. And I want to ask one piece of advice for young architects and designers looking to stay ahead is in rapidly evolving fields. What would you say? Kiona, you can be first, maybe. Can you give an advice for the young architects?
I think young architects shouldn't limit their mind. Should think deeply and widely, and especially need to pay more attention on local culture, because in the future, the future of architecture will be more related to our planet and to our living environment and to our local culture. So I suggest young architects to be more internationally.
Well, thank you for the question. I must say, this question makes me feel like I'm getting older. I feel I still need some advice. However, my advice would be that to be a people-centric, people-friendly, and human-centric in the way you address your architectural designs, especially if it's a piece of architecture or an urban design project. My only concern is that the architecture becomes more a manifestation of self, and self here is the architect, and what you want to leave as a legacy in terms of kind of architectural style and so on. What you leave is actually a people-oriented piece of architecture. And by turning your focus into understanding what would this mean for people as an architecture design or an urban design project, will shift your priority focus. And I think we, as architects and urban designers, we need to think how architecture can transcend from a physical manifestation of space into a place that actually encourage and enrich human potential and sense of community and sense of sense of belonging. Yeah.
Thanks. I totally agree with what you said. However, I think we have to be. I'd like to add something to that. I think we're seeing a very big paradigm shift in our profession and the output with all the artificial intelligence tools that are coming up. It's a very, very interesting moment, but it's also a moment where we have to keep up with what's going on and ask the right questions. So I think we're really at an interesting moment to live this, but as architects we have to both embrace these tools because they're there and the younger generation are going to have to use them because of the sheer force of the market. But we also have a responsibility, I think, as architects and people who contribute to the social fabric of our communities, of our cities, of our environment, how and to what extent we use these tools and understand them to be able to use them properly. So my advice would really be to be aware of this and follow up and be part of the discussion and not just brought into it without too much thinking about it.
Thank you for your invaluable advices. As we conclude today's panel discussions, let's carry the inspiration from these conversations forward and continue to shape the future of architecture that meets the ever-evolving needs of society. Once again, a heartfelt thanks to our panelists,
Thank you.
audience, and everyone who made this event possible. And farewell, and may the future of architecture be as innovative and exciting as our discussion today. Thank you for everyone.
Thank you.